season, who will have more of an impact? You think it's Zion or Ja?
Well, I'm going to go with Zion because you can't teach 280. See, that's the biggest thing for me. I don't think Zion is a legit 6'8". I'm hearing it's closer to 6'6". I do not know that. I've never stood next to him. I just know what I was told. However, I know you don't teach 280.
Yeah.
I know that. You know, and so when, especially as you would say, Max chiseled 280. This is a big boy, and remember, he's a boy, a young man growing into manhood,
So
which means he's only going to
size.
get stronger. And so when we look at it from that perspective and see the ability that he has to walk around at that size, it's incredibly profound. You got to take that into consideration. And so I'm thinking he's going to get the ball. I'm thinking there's a whole bunch of people that's going to move out his way because they don't want to take offensive fouls from somebody 280, okay? Especially coming downhill like that on most nights. Ja Morant is special. I think in the open court, the way the NBA is structured in today's game, Ja Morant is going to be absolutely special. It's just that the only reason I give Zion the edge over him is because you can't teach 280.
No question. Fashionably late, J. Rose?
Of course.
All right. Good to see you.
Good morning.
He has a long commute you don't know anything about, Molly.
Yeah, whatever. Maybe he should get a place in New York City, an apartment or something. Maybe he should.
Sorry, brother, I started
I don't need to
something.
be a part of this conversation.
Maybe he should think about that.
My condolences, my brother.
I know.
My condolences.
You
know what I'm
see
saying?
how the veteran, he like, no, and this guy like, I'll be right in New York City.
Jalen's going to come in with a cramped neck, sleeping on the couch tomorrow.
Max, where are you? Are you more Zion immediate impact or Ja Morant?
It's a really tough call, and I'm going to take Ja Morant for the, but I could go either way, to be honest. But I think here's the case for Ja Morant. Everyone compares him to, like, he's like Russell Westbrook, but blah, blah. No, I don't see him that way at all, as a matter of fact. I see Ja Morant as D'Angelo Russell, but more athletic. You know, he has a certain patience to his game. He has the kind of game of a guy who's not athletic, but then he's super athletic. The way Zion Williamson's compared to, like, Julius Randle, but super athletic.
That's why I don't think about D'Angelo Russell. Not like that.
But that's what I'm saying. Well, if you think of Zion Williamson as athletic Julius Randle, then I'm saying Ja Morant's an athletic D'Angelo Russell type. He's patient. He has vision. He has the kind of poise of a guy who needs it to compensate for athletic ability, but he has a step. He has the fast twitchies. He can shoot. He's already, to me, has the look of an NBA star when he was still in college. So as a rookie in a guard-driven league, I think he has an immediate impact. I do not believe ultimately he will be as great as Zion Williamson will be, because I think Zion Williamson is a once-in-a-generation kind of physical talent. And then he also seems to have the right stuff between the ears. But I think maybe as a rookie, it's possible Ja Morant has the better season.
I think it's Zion Williamson just based on the quality of shots that he's going to get. He's going to get a lot more layups, a lot more dunks, will be a lot more efficient, and is going to play on a better basketball team. The one thing that the Pelicans were able to do in trading Anthony Davis is not only bring in Zion, but keep a solid squad that made the playoffs a couple of years ago. You still have Drew Holiday. You add Lonzo Ball. You add Ingram. That's a nice core. Just the percentages is going to fall into the favor of Zion Williamson because he's going to be getting more layups.
You brought
and
up an
dunks.
interesting point. I want to get your thoughts on it before we transition. Zion's going to be in.
Do you guys feel like this is the best situation that a number one draft pick's gone into? Because usually you're joining a garbage team, let's be honest. And he's not.
I think it is because you could look at someone like Duncan Robinson. Robinson gets hurt, they get the top pick, the Duncan Robinson pairing. But this, in a way, is even better for a young player in the sense that they had AD in his prime on the team. They moved him. So you have all this stuff now, all these young players around Zion's age. Zion is unquestionably the lead guy, but he's not like 18 and everyone else is 30. They're all in their late teens, early 20s. So it's perfect in terms of
one
development.
thing in my mind works for him. The other thing works against him, and I don't think it really going to work against him. The thing that I think works against him, Jalen, is Julius Randle, because I consider them somewhat similar. So I think one of them will have to go unless Julius Randle is willing to come off the bench.
Oh, Randle's
play that
gone.
reserve.
Yeah,
exactly.
he's gone.
Exactly. You're going to have to do that. That's number one. The thing I think works best for Zion is not that Anthony Davis is gone. It's how he left. In other words, the fact that Anthony Davis wanted out and that he essentially asked out, and when you consider the fact that he's blamed for ruining, and I'm not saying he deserves to be blamed, but that he is blamed for sort of ruining this season per se, because they announced before the trading deadline he wanted out. Because they ultimately led to them playing him, taking him out in the third quarter when he had 25 points in the first three quarters, not playing in some fourth quarters. Other games he missed. It was an absolute mockery. His situation, at the very least, was blamed for the dysfunction that happened with New Orleans.
Yep.
Dell Demps ultimately losing his job, even though he could look at himself because you should have made the deal with Magic, because David Griffin made the deal instead. Had you made that deal, you might still be the GM for the New Orleans Pelicans. Bottom line is, because of how Anthony Davis exited, Zion Williamson not only comes in and arrives with hope, but and some degree of expectations, but you have the fan base incredibly supportive because he's there, and obviously you've got a system in place, you got people in place that appear to want to be there, and they're thankful for that.
All right, let me transition. You want to say something else quick? I want to get to Houston, though, because we talked about it with the guys a lot throughout the show, and interesting. Apparently, there's a rift, obviously, between CP3 and James Harden. I asked them the top of the show, is it something or nothing? Stephen A. felt like ultimately nothing. Max something. Max felt like CP3 might not be on the Rockets next season. Stephen A. felt like because of the contract, he will still be there. Where are you on all this alleged drama and what's potentially happening with this team next season?
It's something, and it's major to me, because I don't worry about the personality part of it, because they're both adults, they're both professionals, they're both mature, and they'll find ways to respect one another off the floor, and you won't hear any side-eye quotes from them in the media.
Right.
My problem is basketball-wise. James Harden has some of the highest usage of any player to ever play in the NBA. Oh, and by the way, he's probably going to be amongst the league leaders in field goal attempts for as long as he's playing in Mike D'Antoni's system. And he's the guy that I voted MVP the last 2 years. However,
as I did.
However, he has to make an adjustment from the neck up and be a better teammate. If you're going to be that guy that averages 35-plus points a game, and then all of a sudden somebody else initiates the offense, whether it's Chris Paul or whether it's Eric Gordon, he's flat out disinterested.
Let me give you some info before you continue, because she didn't tell you this part. I spoke to CP3 yesterday. Just so you know, he categorically denies ever asking for a trade. He said that there's no truth to that whatsoever. He's looking forward to being in Houston next season, but he understands the business that comes along with it. If Daryl Morey and those guys end up moving him, he's been around long enough to know that's what comes with it. I did ask him the question about, look, you do have a situation where you came from the Clippers and you were looking forward to coming to Houston and being off the ball. But one could assume that you didn't expect to be off the ball this damn much. He did not get into that. And that's what I wanted you to know.
Well, I'll get into it.
Sure.
It's not about him being off the ball. It's about Harden not being a ball hog. Like, you want him to cook and average 30. That's his game. You want him to play like an MVP. That's his game. However, when Chris Paul is initiating the offense, when Eric Gordon is initiating the offense, you can't be loafing.
Right.
You can't be walking. You can't distort the spacing. When the last time you watched the Rockets play and it was a 3-on-2 break with somebody having the ball in the middle, drop it off to James Harden for a layup? Not often, because he's not running in those situations.
He wanders off and goes hide somewhere.
Yeah,
right. If he doesn't control
correct.
the ball.
There were during this year's playoffs, I broke down a series of plays where Chris Paul was initiating the offense at the top of the floor. He was back at half court almost.
So let me just get this straight. So CP3, the issue for him, you feel, is not like, look, I'll play off ball and I'll be the scorer. I'll do what I have to do. But when I have the ball, can we still run the offense?
Yeah. Can you at least spot up and be can you be a decoy ever?
Well, let me ask you a
when
question.
they were at
That's
their
fair.
when they were at their best last year, Stephen A. Remember they were like 35-3 when all of those guys played. James Harden was able to do his thing at the 3 line, at the rim, and CP3 was able to play mid-range and create for himself and others. They took that away from him this year.
Okay, so my question to you, being a former player, is this. Why do you put so much of that on Harden as opposed to D'Antoni, who runs practically every damn set through him? You have been around the game long enough to know that when you are a high-volume shooter, you're a high-volume performer, and the ball is through your hands most of the time. A lot of those other times, you're looking for a reprieve. You're looking for a break. You've told me that on many occasions. So knowing that that is the reality and how D'Antoni leans on him so heavily, why do we constantly call out James Harden and not D'Antoni for that? Because Fertitta is there trying to negotiate a deal with him that's going to give him $5 million plus $1 million for every additional round you win, as opposed to guaranteeing you $8 to $9 million a year for 3 years. That might be a reason, wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir. But here's why that deal hasn't gotten done.
I know it hasn't gotten done. It ain't going to get done.
Because you got to challenge Mike D'Antoni to coach James Harden.
Right.
And that's why it's tough to coach superstars in any era, because they get set in their ways and they've accomplished so much. They become geniuses of the game.
Well, I'm asking
they get
you,
stubborn.
But here's where I'm asking you. Is it their way as in James Harden's way, or is it Mike D'Antoni's way? Because James Harden, remember when he was in Oklahoma City, we were talking about, this dude might be a better point guard than Russell.
Hey,
so where did that go?
So that lets you know that he can do it.
Okay.
Listen up, y'all.
Wait. I got something for you, thanks to Max. Adrian Wojnarowski, I'm just going to read it right off of Max's phone, just tweeted this. Memphis has traded guard Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz for Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, and Jay Crowder, the 23rd pick in Thursday's draft and a future first-round pick, league sources telling ESPN. Thank you, Max.
I love that trade for Utah.
They needed
Gordon
a point guard.
Hayward left. It's not just a point guard, but they needed a really good player, not just an
a
player.
really good player who was steady that Donovan Mitchell can benefit from playing with.
And Conley has been so underrated his whole career. He's excellent. He makes a lot of money, but he's an excellent team player.
And also, if you're Utah, you're not necessarily a free agent destination. Right. So you want to get a guy that's already under contract, that's already established. And he has the kind of demeanor and defensive ability that's going to help Donovan Mitchell take a lot of pressure off of himself going against those top guards in the West.
I like Conley a lot. I just think that he's done so much for the game of basketball. His steady hand, how solid he is. Yep. I would have liked to have seen him on a better team because, let's face reality, I respect the hell out of the Utah Jazz and what they're able to accomplish. They are not in the championship equation, in my estimation.
Real quick,
but this year it's going to be